That's why I put one on each side. So I put one on each side. So
okay, yeah, because I'll say it's all just have to take it out of the stand, and then yes.
how far do you go?
These two right here, and the tan suit, not very far. It's
Checking.
Hello. Check. Hey. Check.
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you so much for making time for this conversation. And this is just a genuine conversation, listening session, learning session, and to make sure that it's our community voices that are heard as decisions are being made, and it's community voices that are heard to be able to react to some of the decisions that are being made to us. I want to thank my friend Congresswoman Delaney and each and every one of you for all of your work, and frankly just for your attention to this matter, and for making sure that the voices and the cautions and concerns from the community members who you represent, that they are heard throughout this process. As you might have heard, there are some very real concerns that I have about what is being proposed. There is, for people who have come to know me and our time in the state of Maryland, my number one priority is public safety, is making sure that people are safe in their neighborhoods, people are safe in their communities. And I think that there are real challenges to what we're seeing and how that is being proposed. But those are not the only concerns that I have when it comes to hearing what is being proposed right now by the Trump-Vance administration. The concerns that I have is that this site was designed as a commercial distribution project and a commercial distribution facility, and the federal occupant of it and the decisions that they made around it present a very real, significant economic loss that will take place to the community. This was intended for economic growth. This will not present any form of economic growth that the community deserves and that the community needs. That these warehouse facilities support manufacturing, logistics, distribution, along with about 4,000 jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars in wages, and more than $450 million in capital investment. That's what this can represent. What we have seen, though, is DHS now spending $100 million for the acquisition of this, and then another $100 million for the retrofitting of it that went to a contractor. And it is done, by the way, at the same time when we are watching food assistance being taken away, at a time when we are watching health care being taken away, and at a time when we are watching Western Maryland being denied federal disaster relief. And all being done with the same money that is now being used to purchase this facility. The second challenge that I have is there has been a incredibly troubling and frankly, unfortunately, a consistent lack of transparency that we have seen from this process, that we have seen how the federal government has then begun to manage this. The challenge that I have with this is this. It's not like coordination between the federal government and the state when it comes to federal assets is a new thing for the state of Maryland. Frankly, in many cases, it has been our lifeblood. It is something that we uniquely do very well when it comes to partnerships with our federal government. That here in the state of Maryland, we have over 60 federal agencies. Here in the state of Maryland, we have over 20 major military facilities. This is not a new practice. This should not be a new exercise. But when you're looking at the treatment of how the federal government has then placed with the state of Maryland, to include, by the way, the fact that we have now had over 25,000 Marylanders fired in the past year who were federal workers, more than any other state inside this country. This is just continuing to show the level of disrespect and the lack of transparency that we have seen from this Trump-Vance administration, and how they are working with not just the state of Maryland, but frankly, and most disturbingly, our local jurisdictions as well. And so I'm thankful for the chance to spend time with each and every one of you, to listen, to learn, to share, to process, and to understand how we as a state can collectively make sure that Western Maryland and the state of Maryland continues to be heard, seen, and fought for inside of this process, as the Trump-Vance administration is making decisions that we've now even seen from our judges have been shown to be not just against the law, but also things that just do not make sense for our economy, for our environment, or for the well-being of the people of Western Maryland. And with that, I'll pause, and I want to turn it over to my friend Congresswoman Delaney, who's just been an absolute champion on this and so many issues. So, Congresswoman, thank you so much.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. Thank you all for being here, and let me first extend a tremendous welcome and thanks to Governor Westmore, who always shows up everywhere across the state, and especially in Western and Mountain Maryland. He's there first. Your president says everything here. No Marylander will ever be left behind on his watch, and you have been a staunch protector against this administration's lawless moves in fighting for the safety, health, and well-being of all Marylanders. So thank you. Washington County, which I represent in Congress, is a place where neighbors look out for one another. The sense of community has been overshadowed by this proposed ICE detention center. People are frustrated about this administration, and that it has not even done the bare minimum to communicate with the residents here. DH and local leadership have made decisions without providing public forums for the community to comment. And so I thank the governor again for showing up, as he always did and does, and for joining me to ensure that all of you community leaders and businesses can get their input today. In Congress, I'm doing everything to keep this facility out of Washington County, and I introduced a Keep ICE Out of Washington County, Maryland legislation. It was introduced last month to cut off federal funding for this facility and to give our community a legal pathway to challenge it. I often say that warehouses are for packages, not for people. I'm proud also of Attorney General Anthony Brown's fight to secure a court order to halt construction as the state's case continues. And I'm also backing Delegate Matt Schindler's bill in the General Assembly, which is in lockstep with what I've been fighting for in Congress. Together, these actions send a clear message. Marylanders won't stand for ICE terrorizing our communities, for its lack of transparency and accountability, and the complete disregard for human life and for our civil rights. And now, I've seen these conditions firsthand at the ICE-filled facility in Baltimore. Those were horrific conditions, and the crowded holding rooms are much worse than I've seen in prisons. And we can't forget the human impact. Families who are living across Western and Mountain Maryland and across the state in fear, people who are afraid to leave their homes, and stories of harassment and discrimination. And compound that with an El Paso detainment facility, which reportedly that there have been at least 3 deaths, and there are rumors that it might be slated to be closed. So this warehouse, which is planned and purchased by the Trump administration in darkness without meaningful public input, has raised serious concerns about the following: human rights, access to counsel and due process, a strain on infrastructure, environmental risks, and the undermining of public safety. For these reasons and more, I am publicly demanding that ICE let me in the warehouse immediately to conduct congressional oversight inspection. My constituents have been incredibly clear that they have serious concerns and questions that DHS must address. First, how does a detention facility of this size plan to operate with just 4 commercial toilets? 4. That is not a minor oversight. It's a failure of human dignity. DHS, 7-day public comment window on environmental impacts. Now, I'm a lawyer. 7 days? Why wasn't it publicized? Who was that process designed to protect? It definitely wasn't designed to protect this community. And 3, what happens when something goes wrong? What is the emergency plan for a national disaster or disease outbreak or just even basic medical care? What are the protocols? We are still investigating reports of Legionnaire's disease, which apparently broke out in the Baltimore Field ICE office. And this community deserves the truth. But most important are the questions, are the ones that you all, my constituents, community advocates, and business owners are raising. We are here to listen today. The community's voice will not be drowned out. And for those advocates who are not here today, your input is equally important, and I will be holding additional events and convenings in the weeks ahead. Thank you again for coming, and we value your involvement and input. And I now turn it over to Hagerstown Mayor Bill McIntyre.
Okay, I promised Dylan that I'd get this done in 2 minutes, so I'll go as quick as I can. As mayor of the city of Hagerstown, my responsibility is and always will be to the residents, businesses, and infrastructure of this city. On that basis alone, I offer the following statement regarding the proposed federal immigration processing facility in Washington County. This is a federal decision. The acquisition of the Williamsport warehouse by the Department of Homeland Security was made at the federal level, and questions of immigration policy are properly debated in Washington, D.C., not in City Hall. I will leave that policy debate to those who have that authority. What I will not leave to others is my obligation to ask the hard questions that directly affect the city of Hagerstown and its residents, regardless of what side of this issue they stand on. Without a doubt, there are key issues I'm personally focused on that do impact the citizens of the great city of Hagerstown. Number 1, infrastructure capacity. The facility intended to process or house 500 to 1,500 individuals represents a significant and immediate burden on regional infrastructure. A facility of this size would stretch our water resources because of our anticipation of future economic growth here. This is not a political statement, it is an engineering reality. I expect and will demand that the federal government provide clear, verified answers regarding water supply, wastewater capacity, the utility demands before this facility becomes operational. Number 2, emergency services. The city of Hagerstown's police, fire, and emergency medical services exist to protect our community. Any significant increase in regional population density, regardless of its source, has a direct impact on response times, resource allocation, and the safety of every resident we serve. I have requested and will continue to request a full accounting of how federal authorities intend to offset any increased burden on our first responders. 3, economic impact. Hagerstown is a city in the middle of a meaningful economic revitalization. Our downtown, our businesses, and our workforce have worked hard to rebuild. I take seriously both the potential economic opportunities this facility may represent for local contractors and workers and the concerns raised by local businesses owners about the effect this controversy may have on Hagerstown's reputation and investment climate. Both are legitimate and both deserve attention. 4 is the legal process. A federal court has issued a temporary restraining order halting construction pending environmental review. I respect that process. The rule of law matters in immigration enforcement and the protection of local communities from federal overreach. I will continue to monitor litigation closely and support any legal avenue that ensures proper process is followed. And last but not least, transparency and process. The manner in which this acquisition and conversion has moved forward without adequate environmental review, without public input, and without prior coordination with municipal officials is a concern. I will tell you that through this whole process, myself, our city council, and our whole city staff has been 100% transparent through this whole process. We have public open forums during our citizen comment time. We make sure we hear people, and we make sure that we keep the public informed. The people of Hagerstown deserve straight answers, not political theater. My office remains open to all residents, regardless of their view on immigration, who have concerns about how this facility affects our city. I will continue to work through every appropriate channel with both federal authorities and state officials to ensure that whatever decisions are ultimately made about that facility, the city of Hagerstown and its people are protected. And I don't know who I'm going to next.
Good afternoon. I'm Taj Smith, President of Washington County NAACP, Governor Moore, Congresswoman McClain Delaney. We thank you for coming to Hagerstown and giving us an opportunity to express our concerns. We are also grateful to the Attorney General for filing a lawsuit to help protect our interests. And we're also grateful to the Congresswoman and Delegate Schindler for introducing legislation that will prevent other municipalities from being blindsided like we have been. As a civil rights organization, we are deeply troubled by this administration's immigration practices. Their tactics are a clear attack on brown and black communities. The NAACP has consistently advocated for immigration reform that is humane. Yet here we are, facing a plan to treat human beings like Amazon packages. We are concerned about the loss of tax revenue and what that means for our schools, for our roads, and for public safety. The plans for this processing center include moving through a population that is equal to our entire county's population annually. Our water plant is already fragile and operating at maximum pressure, yet this facility could demand 100 times its current water allocation, threatening our water supply. It is concerning that DHS has failed to provide any concrete plans for significant infrastructure updates needed to prevent sewer backup. Our roads and our highways are already over capacity. We are concerned that ICE will use federal funds to outpay local public safety departments, drawing staff away. Our departments are already overburdened and understaffed. The community has been kept in the dark throughout this process. Our county commissioners have not allowed for public comment. Our questions are ignored or met with vague, misleading, or sometimes outright lies. Public comment is essential for transparency, for informed community, and for accountability. What we want is to have a voice in decision-making processes. We are the oldest and boldest civil rights organization in the nation, and the NAACP stands ready to support every effort to ensure that this detention center does not operate in Washington County.
Thank you. My name is Michael Lukens. I'm the Executive Director of the Amica Center for Immigrant Rights. Thank you for having us today. We are the nonprofit legal aid provider that does detention work. So we are doing free legal services for people who are arrested by ICE and detained in Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, Virginia. We know what this looks like. We've been around since President Clinton was in office. I had to do math there for a second. I've been at Amica Center for 12 years. I know what this looks like. I can tell you two truths. One, they are not going to build this warehouse and leave it empty. They are going to find people to arrest and fill it. We are already seeing upticks in immigration enforcement across the state of Maryland. We are already drinking from a fire hose. There's not enough of us to help everybody who gets arrested to get a fair day in court, and this warehouse is going to make it near impossible. The second truth is that they are going to make it almost impossible for due process to exist. They are going to make it hard for attorney visits. They're going to make it hard for family visits. And this is going to tear apart communities. It's going to tear apart families. Just today, a stat was released. 11,000 U.S. citizen children across the country have had a parent detained. We're going to see that number continue to rise. ICE wants to put 100,000 beds across the country in this warehouse style. And this is, honestly, as a Marylander,
Like, I am so proud that we are standing up to this, because this is a test case for the country. We need to stop it right here. And if we can't stop it, we have to be prepared to serve the people and the families that are impacted by this warehouse. So we're going to be here like we always are, but we're going to need your help. We're going to need the community's help. And thank you again for having us here and letting our voice be heard.
Thank you. And to our colleagues in the media, this concludes the open press portion of this meeting.
Were you with the governor? I know. Oh, okay. I'll do whatever you want. WTTG.
I think this works.
I rely on WTTG.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what do we need?
We'll probably be using stuff anyway.
Love it.
We all just did it.
Knee's gonna break our own.
Yeah. You had a play, correct? Start with
flip side, you know, if you don't report it that way, and then it doesn't respond to a negative, you're like, my neighbor. You know, win. It's just like. We pulled in a bunch of extra people. And you're a cheap price store to you. What's bad for me is Montgomery County, but they don't make it to be the bad part. So like out of the Clark, like watching come through. Then 2 minutes, 2 minute warning.
Okay, just for some of you guys who don't know me, I'm just going to ask you guys to raise your hands. I will get to all of you as much as I can, but just let's act as adults, call on questions, keep it civil. All right, 30 seconds.
How long are we here? Till 2? Hopefully 5 seconds.
And turn off on me.
You good?
One goes out, the other works. Hopefully.
Literally just went out. That should be fully charged too.
It's good being back here in Hagerstown, in Washington County, and back out in Western Maryland, and with my friend and remarkable leader, Congresswoman Delaney. And we had a chance to talk with members and citizens, local elected officials, business leaders, community groups, and community activists about what they're seeing and the challenges that they're seeing from this. Where once again we are watching things being done to Western Maryland and not being done for Western Maryland. Once again, we're watching things being done to Western Maryland and not being done with Western Maryland. That at this time, when all we're asking for is measurements of transparency and things that make sense, and what we are getting back from the Trump-Vance administration and what we're getting back from the federal government is while they are declining to support Western Maryland when it comes to federal disaster relief, they will somehow find $100 million to build a warehouse for human beings. Something that is then going to take away from the economic opportunities of this area, and something that violates our basic premise of humanity. And so it was wonderful to be here with the Congresswoman and to spend time with local leaders and just local citizens who are just expressing their frustration and expressing their hopes that we could finally, hopefully, have a federal government that sees us, that listens to us, instead of one that continually looks over us and attacks us.
Well, I thank the governor very much for coming here and for being a part of this roundtable. You know, I am very blessed to have all of Team Maryland that we have been pushing back very hard across the state against ICE and particularly against this proposed warehouse detention facility. I've often said that people are not packages, and this does not embody the values of who we are as Americans, and it subverts rule of process, constitutional rights, individual rights, but also it's going to have a real impact on Washington County, which I represent. It's going to have an economic impact. It's going to have an impact on their health care and their health facility systems. It's terrorizing their schools and their communities. And most importantly, there is no transparency or an accountability by our county commissioners and a sharing of that information of what DHS plans to do within for this warehouse and within this warehouse. And there needs to be that transparency and that information that is really provided to the local leaders, our state leaders, and our federal leaders. And that's why we're pushing back legislatively on a federal and state level, judicially, and on a grassroots level across all levers to make sure that we stop this warehouse in its track and we have more ability to have transparency on what's going to be done. So with that, I
We
needed
got
to.
time for some questions.
Governor,
Brad, I'll call on you.
with regard to this event, there are people who support ICE, and including the Board of Commissioners, elected by the people of this county. And they unanimously said, we want them here. There were a handful of people outside. They were excluded from this event. Could you be convinced that this is something that you could support, or do you hear what those people who support it say?
Well, we are continually going to listen to the people, regardless of what political affiliation they have, or frankly, hearing people from a wide variety of different perspectives on this issue. I believe that is important, and I know with the Congresswoman that these are the type of conversations that we have been having and type of conversations we will continue having. But what I do know right now is this Trump-Vance iteration of ICE, they are literally deploying people inside of neighborhoods who are untrained, who are unqualified, and who are unaccountable. And there is no way that that is something that should be accepted, that we're watching with this Trump-Vance iteration of ICE, that they're now saying that they should be allowed to deputize our brave local men and women who actually are trained and are helping to lead what is literally the fastest drop of violent crime anywhere in the United States of America that we've seen in the state of Maryland over the past 2 years. And we're asking this untrained, unqualified, and frankly overfunded group to now come in and be in charge of things that should be happening in our communities. That's just something that, that I do not accept. It is something that I will never accept. I believe in accountability, and we are not getting that from this Trump-Vance ICE group.
And we will have a series of additional listening sessions and roundtables to get many different stakeholders. But I will say that overwhelmingly, there's been the push back against this facility. It's not about immigration per se. It is about the way in which it is done. It should be done fairly, in accordance with our laws, our rules, transparently, and in a humane way, which indicates our values. And that is what I think we're pushing back against in terms of this facility.
So new documents have come to light about Washington County asking for nearly $400 million in funding for projects from DHS. Are you concerned about or looking into any type of quid pro quo or pork barreling from these correspondents?
Well, I mean, what I can tell you is this, is that we have been trying to work with DHS for months to get federal support and federal disaster relief for historic floods that took place in Western Maryland, and have been literally met with a response of support for Maryland is not warranted. And then when we directly made the plea to both the former secretary and the President of the United States directly, the answer we got back was support for Maryland is not warranted. And so it is kind of ironic to me that out of nowhere now they can just find $100 million of taxpayer dollars to put towards buying a facility, and then an additional $100 million to give to a developer to retrofit it so that humans can actually be used there instead of packages. You know, this is the type of disrespect that we are just becoming accustomed to with what we've seen from the Trump-Vance administration, and we're just demanding more from our federal government.
Congresswoman, could you tell us, my name is Brenda Winchford, I'm with the Baltimore Banner.
Sure.
Could you please describe for us your record on immigration since you have taken office?
Well, I've had a very strong record in pushing back on for immigration, working with all our immigration stakeholders across my district, and in particular, I mean, I have led many different efforts against ICE. I've been with a field hearing in Minnesota most recently. I have been, gathering stakeholders. I have introduced the Keep ICE out of Washington County, and also dealt with a lot of our local stakeholders, both in Montgomery County and across the 6th. So many different efforts that we're doing to push back against ICE, to push back against these unlawful detainments. And I must say also all of our casework and helping all of our individuals that have been unlawfully detained and really helping the families on an individual basis, because I think that is the hardest part right now, is when these loved ones have been taken. And also with our schools, working a lot with terror that is being spread in the schools, and how our school systems can have know your rights and give out many of the different tools for our different community groups that are being really assaulted in terms of their rights.
And you said there has been some issues, obviously, with transparency within the county commissioners. Why not bring them here today? Because we reached out to a couple of commissioners, and they weren't invited. The elected sheriff was not invited. Or did you even try to reach out to DHS? Because we know they have only had a conversation with the county commissioners within the last week or so, because that has taken that long for the county commissioners themselves to get that sorted.
Yeah, we have been in touch with the county commissioners. In fact, as recently as this morning, we're in touch with the county commissioners, on this issue. And we know that there might be a disagreement on this issue. We understand that. And frankly, I think disagreement is natural and good when it comes to the democratic process. But what we also know is this: being able to hear from the community members, and this was nearly 24 community members, also people who do represent a lot of the local jurisdictions as well, who we wanted to make sure that we hear from. We have been very clear that this is not the last time that we're going to be speaking with community members about this issue. But we also know that there is a pretty common belief that there are a few things that do make sense. One is we've got to prioritize and focus on public safety. 2, we have to make sure that we're actually following the law. And 3, we have to make sure we're doing things that are to the benefit of the people of Hagerstown, of Washington County, and of Western Maryland. And I have very real challenges that those 3 criteria, and frankly any of them, are being met by the lack of transparency that we have seen from this Trump-Vance administration on this issue.
And the only thing I will say is I have been in contact with the county commissioner since the first rumor of this facility surfaced, and we have repeatedly reached out to them and asked them for details, and they have met repeatedly with DHS without any of our federal involvement or our local offices. So, and even in our stakeholder meeting inside, I think the city and other community members within Washington County have received no transparency or information either. So but we will be continuing to dialogue with them. Yes.
To piggyback on that question that was Brad asked, did you invite anyone who doesn't agree with you, or after we were not allowed to listen into the rest of the meeting, did you hear from anyone who holds a different opinion than the two of you on the facility?
Yeah, I think what you'll see in that room, that we had Democrats, we had Republicans in that room. There were a wide variety of opinions and a wide variety of the insistence on the opinion that we have heard from people in that room. And we do think that's an important thing. This was not an exercise to try to validate something. This was to listen, to learn, to hear the opinions of local leaders and of local community members, and then being able to then take that to help to establish not just how the state is going to respond, but then also how do we think about a unified response to what we are seeing as executive overreach that is coming from the Trump-Vance administration.
So you did hear from people who want the facility here? Is that what your answer was?
Yeah, I think when you look at the perspectives of the people in that room, there were some people, and for a variety of different reasons, were either skeptical or were just outright against it. And so we heard a variety of different opinions and different reasons, because you had people who represented different groups inside there. So I think getting their perspectives and getting their opinions was important.
Governor, you said multiple times today that you had concerns about a, quote, lack of transparency between the state of Maryland and the Trump-Vance administration. Quick question associated is your close friend and confidant, Armstrong Williams, in the Baltimore Sun, asked you to tell the truth and release the facts. Will you release all the documents that we, Spotlight on Maryland, have asked you to release associated with your military record over the past year that we've reached out to your office about?
We've continued to show transparency on everything and all things related to your Spotlight.
You've only released 32 pages, whereas Tim Waltz and also
except they've released their full records. Yours is not. Why?
Gary, we'll come back to you with those records. I know that our team and your team are in active negotiations, which you know, and we'll come back to you on that. We have been completely transparent. You have, as Spotlight knows, and as you guys are currently engaged in negotiations with us on it. So, let's do one last question, and then we've got to go.
Sure. For both of you, even theoretically, is there anything the Trump administration could do to meet your concerns about public safety, environmental health concerns about this facility? Or is it, you just not want an immigration detention center or processing facility there or anywhere?
There has not been a single drop of conversation or transparency from the Trump-Vance administration. They are just dictating what they're going to do. And frankly, this is not just something that's happening in Maryland. I'm the vice chair of the National Governors Association. This is something that's happening to governors and states all around the country. And so what we are seeing here is not just a violation, as we've seen from the recent court order and the temporary restraining order. It's not just a violation of the law, what they are doing. It's a violation of humanity. It's a violation of any type of coordination between our federal and our state officials. And we're just asking for the Trump-Vance administration to do better, to actually make sure if you're going to do things to our communities, then please make sure you're working with our communities, because we have not seen that from this administration.
Governor, can you talk about ICE in the airports, BWI, Marshall? Have we heard of any ICE agents in there, and your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I can confirm there are no ICE agents currently right now in BWI, and also I can say that the lines are actually moving throughout BWI, and so we are closely monitoring the situation, and we are hoping and expecting that those two dynamics, which are true right now, will remain the truth. That we do not need ICE inside of BWI Airport, and that the lines are continuing to move in BWI.
Thank you guys so much. We got to wrap up. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Yeah.